So in this video, I wanted to talk about how to research a stock. I've been researching stocks for several years now, and after talking to people about my website, it made me remember that when I was first researching stocks, there were lots of things that I missed that I now do by default. So I wanted to share with you completely how I research a stock. And although I'm going to be doing that through my application Tikataco, you really don't need to be using Tikataco at all. You can find all of these resources yourself and save that information however you like, whether that's spreadsheets or documents or calendars. So if you're not yet using Tikataco, don't be put off at all. This is going to be just as useful for you. So I've been thinking carefully about where we should start our path on research. What a lot of people do first is to check the stock charts. But Warren Buffett famously said that he doesn't even check the stock price before he's taken a really good look at the company. He likes to research the company in full first and then determine what price he thinks the stock should have before taking a look at the actual price. Obviously, if it's much cheaper than the price that he had in mind, he would consider purchasing the stock. Now, this is a beginner's guide, so I'm not going to recommend that you go to the 10Qs and the 10Ks and find out everything about this company. However, I do think this is still a good approach to take. So the place that I'm going to advise that you start is with the actual company websites. So if I take a look at a company that I'm interested in at the moment, Aquestive, I click in here, then the first page that we come to is a page of links that are going to be really useful for researching this company. And first in the list here is the website. So if I click into the website, this takes me to the investors part of the website. I can easily go back to the main part of the website by clicking on the logo. But often for us investors, the best part of the website is in the investors part. So if I go back here, we can see here that it's got the pipeline. This is a biotech company. Now the pipeline is effectively the revenue streams for a company. And the revenue streams are nearly always going to be the most important thing about the company. It's where they're going to be making their money. So of course, it's really important to know how a company is currently making their money and how they expect to be making their money in the future. So one of the first things that I would look at here is the pipeline, and that's going to tell me all of the products that they are currently developing and what stage those products are currently in. As this is a biotech company, this is going to be all the drugs or the therapies, but for a technology company, that might be the different products that they have or the different services that they have. So it's very important that we know what these are and build our information around them. So I'm going to go back to Tikataco now to show you how you might want to record this information. So if I go back and then we go into revenue streams, then you can see here that I've listed the most important revenue streams I believe for this company. And if I click into these revenue streams, I've got some additional information here. So for example, I've got the phase, when the patent expiry date will be, evidence of that, the disease category, and when they give revenue guidance, I'm going to be able to put it into the system as well. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the starting point on the website of the different ways that this company is making money or is going to make money, and then I'm adding into that additional research that I find in other places. And something that's very important that I've learned over the years of investment is that you should always provide a reference for where you've got your information. So for example here with the patent date, it's got a link here to where that patent expiry date is. And the reason for that is at some point you're going to come back to this information, and maybe you're coming back to this information because there's a conflict with information that you found elsewhere. Or maybe you found out that this information is really important and you want to verify that it's 100% the case. If you don't provide a proof of where you got that, then you could be wasting a lot of your time trying to find the source of the information that you've already found. So I found that this is really important in any of your research. If you're anything like me though, you'll probably ignore this advice and only realize how important it is after you spent an hour or two trying to find that link. So if we go back to the website, there's lots more useful information in these investor sections. Most company investor sections are going to be a very similar layout. So if we go back to investors, and one of the big things to look out for is the investors presentation. So if we go here to investors, events and presentations, we can see here, thankfully, it's at the top of the list, but sometimes you do have to do a bit of searching to find this. But if we click into here, this is going to be a PDF document that summarizes what you really want to know about this company as an investor. Let's not forget, of course, it's going to be incredibly biased towards the company because the company produced it, but it really is a wealth of information. So just scrolling through here, they're going to give us some statistics about the company and the products. And then we have more information about the pipeline here. There's some really important revenue guidance here. This is very important to know. We have the management team, graphical information about the market. So there really is a wealth of information in this one document, and it's a great place to start when you're investigating the stock. Another really useful thing about the investors section is the press releases. So if I go back to the website, take a look at the menu, press releases. Now, if anything big happens with the company, they're going to release it here. So it's a really good idea to take a look at these and go back at least a year or two. They're normally very quick and easy to read and will give you an excellent overview about the company. Also, another great tip for these sections, if we go back to the main page, we scroll down. As you can see here, they normally have an email alert section. So I can go in here, I can fill out my email address, select the parts that I want to know, and this is going to send me an email as soon as anything changes within this company. So any events or SEC filings, but I'll go into those in a later video. And then you have the news. I don't normally click the quote and the weekly summary. I'll just find that they're not too important and you'll just get inundated with emails. So by the time that you finished here, you really should have a good overview of the company. However, as I've mentioned before, this is a very biased view towards the company. It's a positive spin that the company has provided to get you to invest in their company. And if you're going to put down your hard-earned money, you want to spend most of your time finding out why you shouldn't invest with this company. But just before we get into that, I want to mention again that it's very important that you record the information that you find, the information that stands out to you and that you think is an important reason to invest, or as we're about to talk about, not invest into a company. Of course, I provided a way to do this in Tikataco, and it's in the points section. Now, if you're not using Tikataco, then you can simply write this into a document or however is easiest for you. However, I would suggest that you record at least a similar set of information. So given that we've just gone through the company website, we probably would have just found good points about the company so far. So we would add those into the ballpoint section of this page. We can just simply click add. And as you can see, it's not very advanced. You just want to have a summary of what that good point is. You might want to do a further, more in detailed description. And then you want a proof of where you actually found that information. Again, I will reiterate, although you probably won't listen at this point, but proof is incredibly important. It's going to save you a lot of time in your future investigations. Once that's done, you should have a list of points. And then for more complicated points, you might have sub-ball points or sub-bear points. So in this example here, we have the Anaphylm potential, which is one of their drugs. But a bear point to this positive ball point is that Anaphylm still needs to be approved, for example. So if we go up, and of course, as your research grows, you're going to get more and more of these bull and bear points. So it's important to have a mechanism in which you can sort their priority. In Tikataco, you can do that here by going in and just ordering them how you think they should be ordered. Okay, so you probably have some ball points for the company now. So let's go out and try and find some bear points about the company. One of the best ways to do this is through social media. And one of the biggest platforms out there for stocks is a website called StockTwits. There's a link here, although you can easily just go to the site and search for your ticker. And then here we have a community of people talking about the stock. So it's good to go through this list and see what people are saying about the company, both good and bad. And also to regularly come back and check to see what they're saying on any day of the week. Another good place to find out information about stocks is on X. I really actually hate saying X, I wish it had stayed as Twitter, but this can be a really useful resource for information. Of course, Tikataco will link you straight there, or again, you can just search for your ticker symbol. So as well as social media, you also have articles online, and one of my favorite websites for this is Seeking Alpha. So if we click here in Tikataco, we have articles, and here we have various different authors talking about the stock, and we can click into these. And something I really like about this is the comment section. And the reason that I find this really useful is normally you'll have an author who is either a bull or a bear on the stock. So in the comments, you'll tend to see opposing views. So it's a really good way of filling out both those bull and bear points about a stock. So finally, I'm going to talk about the place that probably most people will start when they look at a stock, and that is the charting information. Now, of course, this is going to be really important. This is how much you're actually going to be paying for the stock. So you want to make sure that you get it at a good price. Here in the charting information, you'll be able to see when it's had some big movements. And I'd really recommend cross-checking that with the website. So if we go back to Tiki-Taka, click onto the website, and then if we go to events, we can scroll down a little bit and we can see here all of the past events, and we can correlate this with the stock chart to find out which have been the important events affecting the stock. And then at that point, we might want to do a bit more research to find out why exactly that affected the stock, to give us a much better view of the company and what affects its price. And for that, we'd be looking at past events. And by seeing which past events have affected the company, we can also try and guess which future events are going to affect the stock price. Currently with this stock, there's no upcoming events, but if there were, then what I'd suggest you do is add them into a calendar so that you're aware of the things that might affect the stock price of this company. Of course, in Tiki-Taka, there's a way for you to record this by going to the catalysts. And you can see here that there's a number of catalysts added already for this company. And in fact, there's quite a big catalyst coming up in about 6 days' time. So that's certainly something I'd want to watch out for. Maybe I want to invest beforehand, or maybe I want to wait until the news comes out and make an investment then. So catalysts are another really important thing about a company. So that brings me to the end of my How to Invest in Stocks video. If we go back to links, you can see that there's many more resources to invest about the company, but hopefully by this point you already have a good overview of what the company does, how it's going to make money, risks that might be upcoming, and catalysts that can affect the stock price. This is a great place to start, and if you'd like me to do a video on more advanced analysis, then let me know and I can talk about the financials, earnings reports, management, some of the other links that we have here on Tiki-Taka, and more. As always, please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video.